and several others, but AIR was the most recent, AYER. So when he looked at this and understood what we were doing, which is to lease the land and as compensation for that lease, acquire net meter credits, what he did, he said, look, here's the best way to do it. So we have an option agreement. The option agreement is 3 pages. It's for a duration of 2 years. It gives EPG the option to lease the land after their due diligence. And keep in mind that in order to build a facility here, they'll have to get a special permit from the planning board, go through the site review, any environmental studies and like that. During the option period, they will pay us either $5,000 a month, beginning, first payment is due the day that we sign this, or provide a net meter credits. I call them discounted credits. Basically, it works out that we currently pay about 14 cents per kilowatt hour. For electricity, we're going to be buying credits, so from them for 8.95 cents. So for basically 9 cents per kilowatt hour, we're going to get 14 cents worth of electric bill paid off, a savings of 5% or 37% roughly. So it'll be one or the other during the option period. The net meter credits don't stop though. If for some reason he elects not to lease the land, then we continue to get the net meter credits.
Is that for the 2 years, Joe?
No, the net meter credits will last for 20 years, correct, Mike?
Yes.
20 years.
But you're talking about a 2-year option.
But he has a 2-year option unless you elect to extend it. I don't know why they'd have to. They can start their permitting right away. We've included notices to the town, our attorney, the EPG Solar, and their local attorney, who's their, you agreed is your registered agent. And with that, it needs to be approved and signed by the board. Pleasure of the board.
I'll entertain a motion.
All right,
Motion, do we have a second?
For discussion, second.
It's been moved and seconded for discussion. It's now open. Mr. Lamont?
Mr. Chair, I wasn't present at the last meeting, but I did watch, and I heard Selectman Casey ask questions, wanted to do some readings, and I know that she went through it. I'm curious as to, was everything you were looking for contained, or changes that need to be made, were they made?
Thank you. There were a couple changes that I had requested to the town manager. I believe those have been made, one of which was, and I think he addressed it to you, Mr. Borkowski, the issue that the option agreement did not have a designated resident agent for your LLC, which is a Massachusetts LLC on paper, but your principal office is in Chevy Chase, Maryland. So I just wanted to make sure that we had on paper a designated resident agent here in Massachusetts if there were any issues. Just don't, why leave it vague? Sure. So that was one of the issues. And then the other component dealt with paragraph 8, where the tenant, who is EPG, would provide a copy of an insurance policy which would name the town as a beneficiary prior to entering the premises. That wasn't defined. I'd ask that that be defined specifically in the paragraph as within 7 days from the date of execution of the agreement. That provision was also changed. It does clearly state that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts would be the jurisdiction if there are any issues. And then the other questions I had dealt with the lease agreement, which we're not signing this evening, but again, the resident agent issue. And there was also a question I had about the bankruptcy, that we specifically provide for a bankruptcy provision and not just leave it vaguely defined as default in case not, we hope there's all success all around here, but I'd ask for that. and the town manager addressed that. And the last thing that I'd asked for, and I'd asked to the town manager, we had some brief discussions, but I want to put it on the record. At the last meeting, Mr. Babcock came back in after he'd made his presentation and said that there was a meeting the next day and that the financial people were meeting and that if we didn't vote on it, it could jeopardize the project. So my little spidey sensor started to tingle, so I called our finance director in the morning and just to do our due diligence, I'd ask that she look into the financials of your company, do some research. My understanding is you're a subsidiary of a larger company, and she did that through the manager. She did that, she was satisfied. We did speak about it on the phone. I'd asked for follow-up written correspondence on that or a memorandum. I'm satisfied with the discussions that we had and the research that she represented to me on the phone, but I still would like, as made part of this record, the memorandum that she is going to supply the board with respect to her findings in the financial health of EPG. So those are my issues, and they have all been addressed. So thank you, Selectman Lamont.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions or concerns? There being none, I'll call for the vote,
Yes.
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 and I'll make it unanimous. Yes. Motion carries.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now, the next item is the net metering purchase agreement. I'm going to defer to Mr. Borkowski on the timing, but I understand we sign this now, the town, we and you enter into this agreement. There are two agreements. One is for a facility of 2 million kilowatt hours, the other for 2,250,000 kilowatt hours. My understanding is that one will kick in as soon as, I think, January, Mr. Babcock said. Is that true?
Yeah, yep. They both will be approximately in the January timeframe.
They'll both be online in January.
Yeah, somewhere in the
So
timeframe.
from this day forward, beginning today, August 21st, and every 21st until sometime in January, the town will receive $5,000 rent, and once we start getting credits, you'll stop paying us the rent, and we'll get net meter credits on our electric bills.
Yep.
So these have gone through with town council, Chairman Casey. I put in the same language. Oh, this had insurance. This is with the net metering. This isn't the lease, my apologies. And this is what town council has. It's standard. I think it's both Massachusetts and federal law that governs these kind of agreements.
Yep.
So request the board, pleasure of the board to authorize Chairman Sad to sign on behalf of the town for each of the agreements.
I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Madam Casey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm looking at the option, and it doesn't say registered agent, so we're going to type that in, right?
Write that in, you can write that in here.
Okay.
Because he told me tonight when he showed up that he is indeed the registered agent.
Want me to have our secretary type it in so it's neat?
Okay,
I don't want to write it in. I'll let you type it in above the attorney. I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, that's fine.
I mean, I don't want to be a stickler about it, but let's not have any vagueness or ambiguity.
Okay, now, any other questions, concerns? There being none, I'll call for the vote.
Yes.
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 okay.
The record show 4 in the affirmative, motion carries.
And then, the only other thing we have, and also for Chairman Sad's acknowledgement, is the assignment and assumption agreement. You'll recall that we're not going to sign the lease agreement until he exercises his option. The assignment agreement is this is going to, Mike, Washington Gas.
Washington Gas Energy Services.
Yeah, we checked them out too. They're the people that are, why don't you explain how that works?
Yeah, so Washington Gas Energy Services are the ones that are providing the financing for the net meter facility. And so under the financial arrangement, they will own all the, kind of rights to the net meter credits and all those types of things, and overall responsibility to ensure the financial success. You're in a far better off position. They're a multi-billion-dollar company, and so they're the ones who will be backing your guarantees and all those types of things. And all this does is basically assign the responsibilities of that agreement to this larger entity.
Pleasure of the board to allow Chairman Sad to sign on behalf of the board.
So moved.
Second. Moved and seconded, discussion? Ms. Casey?
Just a question, so this is allowing you folks to assign your rights to Washington Gas, am I
Just for the
understanding that?
net meter agreement, yes.
Okay, and is that controlled by any federal law, or is this all Massachusetts?
I believe it's governed by both. The contractual law is governed by the state of Massachusetts, but I think and I'm not a lawyer, but, there
Sure.
are some federal regulations as to who owns or doesn't own and all those types of things. So,
Okay, and to the manager, were there any references to the federal,
yeah, I'm not even sure. The way it works is clause 11.3.1 in the net meter agreement allows for it to be assigned for financing purposes. And so all this does is it is an acknowledgement by the town that that assignment is actually, transpired.
It's
Yeah.
under the Commonwealth, laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
okay, and I asked because I don't want to approve something and then have it come back on us that federal law applies and there's some provision that we're not aware of, and so to the manager, you're saying that Massachusetts law would control
That's what
that
it says right here in
assignment?
the,
Yeah.
this is what it says right here in the acknowledgement.
Okay,
And Rick Holland, who is the town's attorney, went through that, and he actually was instrumental in creating the document. So,
okay, thank you.
Any other questions or concerns? There being none, I'll call for the vote.
Yes.
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 Yes, 4 in the affirmative, motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, appreciate it. I look forward to saving the town some money
Yeah, I
come
think
January.
this is a great opportunity for the town. We're real excited to work with you, and we'll be keeping Joseph abreast of all the different facilities, and I think it would be a great opportunity for you guys to come out and see the facilities and be a part of the grand opening of the different facilities. So thank you very much, and we look forward to a long and good relationship.
Thank you.
Good luck. Thanks for coming in.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to be heard about the criminal facilitation of the police department having to do with the bombs thrown at my mother's house at 16 Sacarappa Road in Oxford, and the fact that nobody's been prosecuted.
Are you on the agenda? Did you
Um,
request to be on this agenda?
I believe, sir, under the public meetings law, I have the right to be heard as to freedom of speech, as my family is in fact being victimized by the police department and this town.
You have a right to be heard, but there's also procedures that you must
Have never
follow to
followed
be
the
heard.
procedures, sir.
I'm telling you, you are out of order. If you have a complaint, you want to get on the agenda,
I have requested to be
You
on
have
the
until
agenda and have
until
been
next
denied,
week.
sir, which you do not have the right to.
we can put you on the agenda if you so choose.
Would you do so now?
You're not getting on the agenda tonight.
You're refusing me the right to freedom of speech
No, I
publicly,
am
sir?
not. I'm refusing you the opportunity to get on the agenda when you did not meet the deadline to be on this
All of the select
agenda.
board members here tonight are denying me the right to be heard about bombs being thrown at my mother's
Great.
house in Oxford? That's incredible.
Okay. You're out of order. You want to get on the agenda?
I'm
Get on
trying.
the
You
agenda
won't
for
let
another
me.
meeting.
You won't let me.
I will let you. Get on the agenda for
I've
another
sent
meeting.
letters in. I have documents stating you will not let
I
me.
am telling you, in the future, if you want to get on this agenda, you will
Put me on.
follow the
Put me on for the next
procedures.
meeting right now before everybody, or you're a liar, sir.
Put this gentleman on the agenda for our second meeting in September. Because
The
I don't
next
believe...
meeting.
Quiet, please. You're out of order.
Yes, sir.
Please put him on the agenda for the second meeting in September. I don't believe we have anything on the agenda that meeting as of yet. Is that correct?
Correct.
What's the date?
September 25th.
September 25th at 7 o'clock.
Would that be a public meeting?
It will be a meeting just like it is here today. You are on the agenda, officially on the agenda for the
As to
15th.
the ongoing criminal facilitation in the police department.
You're on the agenda. Wait a minute.
Joe, wait a
Wait a
minute.
minute.
We need the complaint in writing.
If you're filing a complaint against a department or a public employee, we have a policy that it has to be put in writing, so please put it in writing. And then
You're
come before...
denying me the right
I am not denying you the right.
about bombs
You are on the
thrown
agenda.
at my mother's house by Randy Pitko.
You are on the agenda.
Sad, you're out of order because
No,
one
no,
of your
you're out of
nieces-
order. I want him out of here now.
I
Now,
I'm not here the 24th, Casey.
Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Whatever it
Town
is.
managers report for August 21st. We have meeting minutes. Request the board vote to approve the meeting minutes of July 24th, 2012. All were present. Pleasure of the board.
Motion?
So moved.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? There being none, call for the vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Four in the affirmative, motion carries.
We have an election worker appointment. The board has received a request from Town Clerk Lori Kelly to appoint Mr. Carl J. Farraco of Lambert Court as an election worker in Precinct 4. He'll serve until August 15th of 2013. Pleasure of the board.
So moved.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion? There being none, I'll call for the vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. Four in the affirmative, motion carries.
The board's in receipt of a right of first refusal request from Attorney Edmund A. Neal III on behalf of Mr. John Guerin of 20 Kingsbury Road, Webster, Massachusetts, concerning 62 Old Southbridge Road, which is shown on Assessor's Map 48 as parcel B08.02. Attorney Neal is requesting the Board of Selectmen waive the town's right to purchase said property. The Conservation Commission and the Planning Board have no issue with the town not exercising its right of first refusal. Pleasure of the board.
Motion?
So moved.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion?
Discussion.
Casey?
Mr. Chairman, we've dealt with a number of these in the past, the right of first refusal. I guess just to the town manager, I know we get the input from the planning board and the Conservation Commission, but do we send anybody out from tech review or from our development departments to determine whether or not we have any use, or do we rely strictly on the planning board and the conservation in this case? I mean, do you ever go out and inspect this land if there's any potential uses for development for the town or infrastructure development?
I have when I was town engineer, and I believe they talk about it at Tech Review. I know Rhonda Tawadros, who's our civil engineer, works with the planning board and gives them information. She works with Judy Lochner, who's our conservation agent. So the whole thing does work together.
Does it make its way to you?
I get copies of the information, so I know what the parcels are. In this case, I think it's strictly a large farm lot, correct? Or house lot.
Yeah.
It's a large house lot that, because of its size, he was able to designate as farm or agriculture, and now that he's selling it, we get the money back.
All right, good for, and I'm not picking on this request, it's just, that we deal with a lot of these, and, you know, it makes somebody wonder, land is becoming more and more scarce, and whenever we deal with rights of first refusal, I think we should just be a little bit more astute to potential uses for the town, and not, this obviously isn't one of them, but I know when the town manager was the town engineer, that you would physically go out and look at the land, so I just, if we could, I don't know, to the town manager, can we just be a little bit more conscientious
I'll
about?
remind them.
Yeah, and just to make sure that the engineer and tech review's looking at it too, I mean, that's all. Because I know we approve these things, and half the time, I'm sure half of us don't even know where the land is, so, thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure of the board.
Entertain a motion?
So moved.
Moved and seconded? We did. Any further discussion? There being none, I'll call for the vote.
Yes.
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 Yes, four in the affirmative, motion carries.
We have a yard sale permit request. Why is that here? Oh, I get it. The board has received a request from Ms. Evelyn Auger of 151 Main Street to grant her 2 more yard sale permits for 2012. Ms. Auger has used her allowed 4 permits for this year, but is requesting 2 more due to financial needs. Pleasure of the board.
I just want to ask, maybe the clerk can give us some background on this. How often has this request come before us for over and above the number?
Pretty
Was this person ever one of them? Okay. Board members? Open it up for discussion?
And discuss.
I'll make a motion that we approve this. I think it's wonderful that she has come to us instead of just doing it on her own like some people do.
Second it?
Have a motion that's been moved and seconded. Discussion? None? Call for the vote.
Yes.
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 Yes, four in the affirmative, motion carries.
We have a request from Farouk Ansari, president of Ansari Builders, to place an article on the October 3rd, 2012 special town meeting warrant to accept as a public way Jasmine Road. Jasmine Road is off Fort Hill Road, just before you get to the rise going up towards the farm on the hill. So it's just past the intersection with Sutton Avenue. And to go forward with the procedure to lay out the roadway. We don't have a specific recommendation from the planning board yet. So I'm asking that the board, for the pleasure of the board, to just hold a spot on the warrant right now. Because we have to go through the process of they're doing their inspections, making sure that the road is complete. Then you have to go through the hearing to lay it out before town meeting can hear it. So this may not be ready for this fall, but at least we'll have a spot if you so vote.
I'll entertain a motion to hold a spot on the special town meeting warrant.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it for discussion.
Moved and seconded, discussion?
Yeah, Joe, I remember this development back when I was on the planning board, going
Yep.
back sometime, and I know that we had a lot of issues at this location, and we really gotta make sure that we go over this project with a fine-tooth comb. I know there was problems with the common septic. The roadway was a battle, never ending. I know that roadway has been, seen many, many winters, and I don't know what the condition of that roadway is, so if you could please talk with the town, engineer, make sure he goes down there, and really goes over that with a fine-tooth comb, because, you know, we take this road, and once we take it, we own it, and his problems become our problems, and I don't really think we're in the business of fixing
That's right.
developers' issues, so if you could.
I agree, thank you.
Pass that along.
Yes.
I kind of want to echo that. That's what I wanted to say also is I would be very concerned that all the drainage issues, we've had drainage there where it's gone into the pond. This thing really needs to be looked at, please, before, I would really like the planning board, the engineers, to definitely go over this very closely. Thank
Right.
you.
Any other questions or concerns?
Just voting to hold the spot, correct?
Right.
Yep.
There we go.
Hold spot. Call for the vote.
Yes.
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 Four in the affirmative, motion carries.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman, remind the board that if you do not lay it out, town meeting, even if the article were on the warrant, if you have not laid it out, town meeting can't consider it. So you have the ultimate say, even if for some reason the planning board thinks it's just the best road in town. And I've had the same experience you all have had. With this special election, we've been advised by Town Clerk Lori Kelly that a special election will be held on Thursday, October 4th, 2012. The Bay Path Regional School District has called a district-wide special election. Polling hours on that day will be from 12 noon to 8 p.m. Please note that this will be the day after our October special town meeting. The last day and hour to register new voters or change party enrollment for the special election will be Friday, September 14th, 2012. The town clerk's office will be open that day from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. for registrations or party enrollment changes. As an extra, the town clerk also notified us that the annual town election for May 2013 will be held on Tuesday, May 21st, 2013. That's an announcement. You might recall that the election was going to be held, I think, from like 7 in the morning to 8 at night, or 8 to 8. And the Bay Path people discovered that under the law for district-wide elections, it can only be from noon to 8. That's why the weird hours.
Mr. Chair, a question for Mr.
Yes.
Sinaski. Joe, who is paying for this? Is Bay Path paying us for this?
Bay
special
Path is
license?
paying for this, yes.
They are, excellent.
We have a picnic at Huguenot Fort coming up. We've received an invitation, the board has received an invitation from the Historical Commission and the Huguenot Memorial Society of Oxford to attend the annual picnic at the Huguenot Fort on Sunday, September 16th at 12 noon. Rain date will be Sunday, September 23rd. The Historical Commission is in need of volunteers to participate in a pageant entitled The First Settlement. It'll take place at the picnic. If any citizen would like to volunteer, please contact Ms. Jean O'Reilly at 508-987-0176. And board members, please notify your clerk by Friday, September 7th, if you plan to attend, so she can RSVP on your behalf. Conservation Commission has, we've received notice from Conservation Commission that McKinstry Pond will be treated to control the growth of water lilies. That will take place on Tuesday, August 28th. That's a week from today. The rain date will be August 31st. The pond will be closed to all uses to include swimming, boating, fishing, and so on the day of the treatment. Aquatic Control Technology Incorporated of Sutton will be performing the treatment. So to the neighbors in that area, you'll see them on the 28th, unless it's raining. And
Joe, what is considered raining, like a full day rain, part of the day raining? You know, how is a homeowner supposed to know?
I don't know. I'm surprised that if you're putting stuff in the water, that the more
Yeah.
water would hurt it.
I know.
I don't understand that.
I mean, you know, how do they know? If it's raining in the morning and it's done by 10 o'clock, are they gonna treat it, or, you know?
I'll
that's-
try to get more information
Thank
from
you.
people on that. You know, sometimes I read these and I have to,
Yeah.
I try not to, I'm sorry. And we finally have two reminders. The warrant for the October special town meeting will close on Tuesday, August 28th at 4:30 PM. We have a very short warrant. I think we'll have a nice, hopefully we'll get some, we'll get a good enough crowd, though. We have one money article for the, to increase the school appropriation based on more state aid than we anticipated in May. And if you'll recall from our last meeting, Mrs. Folio was able to reduce our debt and interest payments based on the refinance, or refunding they call it. So we'll get to lower that as well. And finally, the state primary will be held on Thursday, September 6th, from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. That's my report for August 21st.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Before we get into Selectmen's request, I just want to, while it's fresh in my mind, is for the record, remind people that anyone, any resident of this community has a right to come before this Board of Selectmen. This is an open, public meeting. However, any individual requesting to come before this board to be heard publicly and put on our agenda has to follow the procedures as outlined and approved by this board. There are specific guidelines for how you get on the agenda. There are specific guidelines for agenda items. If it concerns a town employee, committee member, department, that complaint has to be in writing. And to the clerk, I would like you, in writing, to send a letter to Mr. Mulvey explaining those procedures, and also a copy to the police department, also notifying them of Mr. Mulvey's presence on the agenda of September 25th. Thank you. Selectmen's request, Mr. Lamage?
Well, thank you, Selectman Saad. As I am a member of as our town manager is also of the building committee for the middle school renovations, I thought it would be appropriate to let the public know to probably squash any rumors that might occur that we did have a leak. The roof was being done this summer, and we did have a roof leak with one of those major rainstorms that we have. And I'd like to let the public know that this was handled very well. We had our fire department, electrical inspectors, we've had local alarm inspectors, all sorts of inspectors down there, as well as local officials to check out what had occurred at the time of the leak and afterwards. It is all being handled by the contractor, is paying 100%. I can state that, 100% of all repair work, damage work, or any other fees. The fees for the fire department to get down there, the fees for the janitors, so on and so forth, that is being held, he is being held 100% accountable for that, paying for that. And I have to say that all of this is being documented for future problems that we might have. If there's any possible problems with the electrical down the road, this is all being documented so that that person is responsible. So it did not affect the town whatsoever, other than the inconvenience. School is starting on time. That's been taken care of. The problem's been taken care of. And I just thought, being a member of that committee, that I should inform the board and the public that that's being handled. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Mr. Bose?
I'm all set, thank you.
Me too.
Thank you. I just have a couple items. The first of which I just wanted to bring up an issue I brought up a few weeks ago, and I know the clerk supplied everybody with a copy of the information that was available on the constables carrying firearms, those constables who have a license to carry firearms and who have taken gun safety courses. I know that she supplied that to members of the board, and in addition, we did receive a memorandum from our chief of police recently stating that he did not have a problem or any objection to constables who have licenses to carry firearms from carrying firearms, as long as they carry those firearms discreetly, so they're not, going up to a door. I think he used the example of a Wyatt Earp, with the gun blazing. It's that it be discreet and that it be concealed. He didn't have a problem with it. And, just to kind of step back here, this was an issue that was brought to my attention by a police officer who is also a constable, and he was asking me, out of curiosity and concern, why the town of Oxford specifically prohibited constables from carrying firearms when they delivered papers and served papers, and I thought that was a good question. I didn't know the answer, so I asked our clerk to get me a copy of this notice that specifically prohibited constables in the town of Oxford from doing that. She provided that to me, as well as correspondence from our chief of police back in 1986, correspondence from town council from 1993, correspondence from 1988. This issue goes back some years, and of course the chief of police, his recent memorandum is from a few weeks ago. And basically, the thinking back then was that it was, the denial was based upon an assumption that constables didn't have any firearm training, and we know that's not the case today, because if you have a license to carry, you have to take a fire safety course, and there's a lot of stuff that you have to do. Your query has to come back clean and other things. So I had brought this issue up a few weeks ago. I said I would bring it back up, so I'm going to put a motion on the floor that we allow constables in the town of Oxford who have a license to carry firearms when they are serving process, as long as they do so concealed.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion that's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Yes.
I mean, I think it's a good point, especially at today's day and age, where there's so many, volatile situations that these constables are thrown into. He could be serving divorce papers, and, emotions run high, and, just from looking at the news, you can see the type of things that have been occurring where, innocent people are being attacked. These gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, do have the proper training. I don't see a problem with it at all. I think it's a good idea.
Any other discussion? I just have a couple points. First of all, did we follow up on the liability? Supposing there's an incident and a weapon is drawn, and someone gets injured, what's the liability on the town? We know that?
I don't know that, and I don't know what the liability on the town would be if a constable were killed who had a license to carry and we prohibited him or her from protecting themselves. So I don't know what the liability would be on either side of that.
I'm wondering if it's the same liability that the town would have if an Oxford police officer was in a similar situation.
They're not employees of the town, so I think it's,
That's just a question that I have. I have no problem with a constable carrying. I have none whatsoever. But I think that these kinds of questions that are out there should at least be answered. The other thing,
just to the point, what do we have for liability insurance now for constables? Nothing.
I don't know.
So, I don't think
It's
we have
something
anything.
that has to be added to our liability insurance. I don't know. I mean, these are.
Well, if it is, I would make that part of my motion. I would certainly say that's a good suggestion, and if it is, I would make that part of my motion.
Okay. The only other question or concern that I have is that if a constable is to carry a concealed weapon, that individual is carrying just like an Oxford police officer would be carrying. Therefore, I would expect that any rules, guidelines, or regulations or qualifications to have that weapon are also met by the constable as they are met by an Oxford police officer. In other words, if it requires qualifying yearly or every 2 years with the weapon, if the Oxford police officer has to do it for safety purposes, I think that the constable should have to do it.
I don't have an issue with that.
I mean, those are the only two questions I have. And if those two questions can be addressed and the chief can agree to that, I have no problem with it.
I would just incorporate them into my motion, that if there is liability insurance that we should acquire, that we acquire it, and that whatever the training requirements are for the police officer with respect to weapon safety training and weapon training, that the constables be required to follow the same suit. I have no problem with that. I mean, I don't want people, I want to make sure that people are safe, and it's to keep the constables safe, and it's to keep the general public safe. So I think those are good suggestions, and I would incorporate those into my motion.
And I think it's a good motion. I think in this day and age, you have to be extra careful. Times are a lot different in this day and age than it was even 15 or 20 years ago. So I have no problem with it. I think it's a good motion. I would just like to see those questions incorporated in the motion so that we can ensure that everybody feels comfortable with this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then I'll call for the vote.
Yes?
Yes.
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 Yes, motion carries. 4 in the affirmative.
Thank you. And, Mr. Chairman, I just have one additional event. I don't know if any members of the board have received any complaints. I got a complaint, and I did follow up on it, that there was an event held on August 19th at the 200 Sportsman Club, and our fire department was approached. I know neighboring communities in Douglas, I believe Sutton, I don't know about Webster. They were approached to send fire personnel and EMT and public safety apparatus up to the 200 Sportsman Club to take part in an appreciation day for public safety personnel and firefighters. So, and I did speak to the town manager today about this and with the fire chief about it. And that's how this event was pitched. Well, it turns out that this was a political event sponsored by a fellow by the name of Don Bork, who's running for office for state rep in Webster, he and his committee. And what happened was these communities, and I guess this happened in Douglas too, the fire chiefs weren't aware of this. It was a political event. And now you have pictures of, I believe it's an Oxford fire truck. There's certainly a Douglas fire truck posted on this candidate's website being used for political purposes. And my understanding is that it was a fundraiser, it was a political event. And, I know the chief is very disappointed and dismayed, the fire chief, because she feels duped. And I know that the chief in Douglas feels that way, and it's completely inappropriate. I got a few calls on it. I don't know if members of the board have heard anything about it. I did see a fire truck go by my house on Sunday, and I thought that was kind of odd, you know, it was cruising, I live up on the hill, and so now that I know that there was an event, it wasn't an emergency situation, I know why that truck was up there. So, you know, it's clearly a violation of, state ethics, and it's something that's gonna have to be addressed. I mean, there's pictures on a website, it's a bad situation. The last thing I want is somebody from Oxford to come up to me and say, why are our fire trucks and our fire personnel at a political event for somebody who's running for state rep? And, it's out there. I don't know if the Webster Times or the Patriot has covered it, or if they intend to cover it. I don't know, to the town manager. I know that you spoke to the fire chief, and I did also speak to her. I reached out to her after we spoke, just because I had a couple extra questions, and I wanted to just get it right from the source. She tells me that we didn't spend any money on personnel, luckily, which would have just made this even worse, but our fire truck was up there, and, you know, obviously there was gas used to get it there and what have you, but I don't know about the other communities as far as paying their personnel. I'd like to send a letter to this Donald Bork's committee, you know, asking them in the future that if they plan on having a political event, maybe this is a mistake of a novice, although it does seem, you know, like it was a political stunt to get a photo op with fire trucks from communities. I mean, that's, the pictures are already up online, so, I mean, if it was a mistake, it really was a stupid one. And I'd ask that we send him a letter asking that in the future, if he plans on having any events, that he be clear with his intention, that this is a political event, because the fire chief said, you know, she's no dummy, and she's not political. She wouldn't have sent any vehicles up there if she had known what it was. So I'm gonna make a motion that we send a letter to Mr. Bork's campaign committee, just saying, look, don't do this in the future. This is a clear violation of the ethics. You can't use any town resources in a political campaign. It makes us look somewhat foolish as a community because we were up there, and you know, people weren't given the straight story about this being a political event. So I am a little irritated by it, and I'd like to send a letter asking, you know, that he not do it in the future, and ask him if he'll apologize, and if he doesn't apologize, we're on record saying, you know, don't deceive our public safety people. If it's a political event, say it's a political event, and they won't show up. I mean, we all know this. You can't use a police department or fire department or anything like that in a political campaign. You can't use them for photo ops. It's just totally inappropriate.
You want it from the board or from me?
I'll put it out there for discussion. I mean, I think, I'd like to sign it.
Yeah, I'd have no problem with that either.
And I just have a question. Was this a written invitation to these towns?
No, I guess they got a phone call according to the chief, they got a phone call saying, would you send some apparatus up? We're having an appreciation day for all the departments in the area, Douglas, Sutton, I don't have the exact words, but it was a phone call saying, come on up, we're having hot dogs and hamburgers, we just want to show our thanks. So they go up there, and then they find out that it's a campaign event for somebody who's running for office. And my understanding is there was money being raised, you know, and there were photographs being taken, and now they're up online on a candidate's website. So it certainly wasn't, it wasn't conspicuous. It wasn't, hey, this person's having an event, would you please come up? It would mean a lot, you're in district town. And then the chief would say, we can't, we're sorry, thanks for the invite. But, you know, I mean, the things you do and things you don't do, and this was pretty stupid.
Were these fire people that drove the vehicle, were they being paid for it? Or
No,
was it
luckily they were
volunteers?
volunteers from our town. I don't know about the other towns, but I mean, certainly we did have a vehicle up there. She sent our new truck up there, and she was proud of it. Nothing on our fire chief. I mean, she was asked to participate in a Public Safety Appreciation Day, not come be part of a photo op for somebody who's running for office. So, I mean, it's not on her at all, and I think the other towns all got the same phone call, and I think there are similar conversations being held in other communities because of it. It doesn't look good.
Well, certainly, if this was for political purposes, it certainly is inappropriate. And I think that, you know, our concern should be known to whatever candidate
Right.
would do something like this. I don't know the total background behind this, but just on base what you're saying, and I will base my vote on your integrity and say, yes, if you feel this was a violation, I would support it.
Thank you, and I spoke to the chief personally to make sure, she said, I didn't know, I would, we never would have sent a truck if we knew that this was an event for a candidate, and she said, I'm not political, but I'm not naive either, and so, I heard it from the chief herself, and, this is my understanding of what happened.
So you made a motion for us to send the letter, I'll second
Yes.
that.
There's a motion, it's been moved.
Second.
And seconded. Any further discussion? There being none, I'll call for the vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes, for the affirmative motion.
thank you, Mr. Chairman, I don't have anything else.
The only thing I have, and this is to the manager, I was quite surprised when I saw the little blurb in the Telegram today about the bridge being closed in Webster and Oxford not notifying sister town. Could you fill us in on what happened here? That does not look right for the town of Oxford. When I read it, I said, how can that be? I mean, they must have been aware that this was going on. We have an agreement with these people. Would you please explain?
Yes, they were aware. When I read it, my reflexive response, like yours, is, what did we do? All right? But then on reflection, I said, why would he admit that he was surprised? We've been working on this project for months. You know that. You attended one of the meetings here. We just had a groundbreaking where the lieutenant governor came out. So I had our people work this out. It's, I don't have the exact facts, so Ellie, it's old news anyway, but for our benefit, their Steve Esposito guy was at the meeting Friday, and their guy was there Monday morning. On Friday, they said, well, this is what we're going to do. Now, picture this project. You have to go over that bridge and then immediately cross the railroad tracks. We have to dig two big holes, one on each side of the railroad tracks, to push a pipe through so we can run our sewer force main into that, through that pipe. In order to do that, we've got a good-sized piece of machinery. They all decided Monday morning, and this is what I've heard, is that Mr. Gosher was, in fact, suggested that they close the bridge. He said, but I'm going to have to notify the selectmen, they meet tonight, and he did notify them. Why he said he was surprised by Oxford, I don't know, unless it was his way of assigning blame, it's not my fault. And it's just, it doesn't make sense to me.
The thing is, there really should be no blame here because this is not an Oxford project. This is a project that involves 3 towns, Webster, Dudley, and Oxford. So we shouldn't be pointing fingers at one another. We're a unit here when we're doing this project. And I would hope that in the future, anything that pertains to this project is looked upon as a tri-community project, not just an Oxford project. It's state funding, it's $2 million that's being used for this project that's going to benefit 3 towns, not just the town of Oxford. And that's all I'll say on that one. Any other business to come before the board? There being none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We are adjourned.
I guess we don't have to vote on that.
So in this case, the town, as the owner, has the claim on that removal bond. When we have other facilities on private land, then it's usually the private landowner who has the first claim on that. A lot of times, the towns will try and get, to be effectively a named insured on those removal bonds. They're very clearly in second place behind the landowner. As a landowner, this town would have first claim on
We would
that.
go first. We had those requirements on the several cell tower lease arrangements that were done that the planning board permits. So
But
the property owner, in fact, I can remember Ralph Lepore was quite concerned about that. They didn't want derelict towers and when we did the permits, at least, well, this was 6 years ago, and I'm sure he does it, he still does it, that's his concern, is that there is a bond, a removal bond in place to assure that if they move on to some other facility, it doesn't just linger there.
The other thing is, these facilities are extremely self-sustaining. Now, one of the things that we were discussing was the cost of clean power versus dirty power. Dirty power has a cost, as it does, mainly based on variable inputs. So
You mean dirty power, the government intervention, or dirty power like burning coal?
dirty power,
You'd have to
burning
be
coal.
more- okay,
Burning coal.
thank you.
Sorry, I apologize for my
Okay,
vernacular.
you gotta clarify that with me, because it's all dirty.
Yeah, but the variable inputs in power, in other words, the fuel costs and the O&M costs are extremely high. So coal and natural gas and things like that, those are the things that you have to be concerned about. I know a facility down in Southbridge that is, 5 years ago, somebody went in there, redid the AO factory. They put in 5 brand-new natural gas power generator facilities there, and they were generating power. Natural gas spiked. And they said, you know what, I can't do this anymore because we call it the spark spread. The spark spread's too small, the cost between my fuel cost and the amount of power I'm getting. Those generators are sitting there rusting and seizing up right now. That doesn't happen with our facility. Solar panels, even beyond wind is fairly benign and fairly low secondary cost also. But solar panels don't do anything. They sit on the ground, they don't move, they just generate electricity. The rain in Massachusetts comes and washes them off for the most part. Yes, we have to send somebody out there every once in a while to go and check and make sure the wires aren't frayed, but this is not, once this facility goes in, all of its costs are already there. They're already expended. So nobody is going to let this thing stop operating. They'll operate it beyond, if they could, if the lease didn't expire, because they're all sunk costs. Everything that they get at that point is just more money in their pocket. So these things just do not go and become, empty shells, because A, there's nothing to be empty of, they're just glass sitting on a piece of steel somewhere, and B, they generate money when all of the money that went into them is already spent.
Right.
So these things don't go and become non-operational.
One final question then. Just out of curiosity, is your equipment subsidized? Are you subsidized anyway by the government? Is there any incentive programs that you're on your equipment? Are you getting special loans from the government, or
No, I mean,
you're totally 100% privately funded? There's no
our
incentives
companies,
from the federal
yeah.
or the state?
As we've talked about, there are certain federal programs that are in place. All power generation equipment gets some form of tax credit. In this case, ours is called an investment tax credit. But no, we're not taking grants, we're not taking subsidized loans, we're taking advantage of federal programs and state programs that are put in place that if we don't do, somebody else will do. But it's not like anybody's giving us money, there are programs in place that, allow us to generate a tax credit or generate a solar renewable energy certificate.
Thank you.
The site is on page 6. You know what it is. Well, perhaps you don't know what it is. It's top of a hill with a few scrubby trees on it, surrounded by forest behind the industrial park. It's a fairly nice site, especially the top of the hill. Top of the hill is really nice. The problem is that as that hill slopes to the north, as you can see, that's kind of the wrong angle for solar panels. But that little middle piece that we've designed there is kind of running down a ridge. And we've got that whole top of the hill, and then we're looking at the red line that sort of goes to the northwest. There is the access line for the maintenance trucks and the construction vehicles ultimately when they go in, but also for the transmission line that would go back and tie into National Grid right at the industrial park.
If I may, for the board members, the land that he shows the panels on, you'll notice that underneath you can see that there's less, the green is less dark. Might recall that at town meeting, somebody commented that Emerson Smith had forested, treed, and he did, which is not a bad thing. So he got his the value of the firewood out of that, but it's beneficial here because it's already, the trees are already cut. In the upper right, we also own that piece. We don't own the piece, we do own the piece to the far left. It's kind of a bent shape. That's the piece we took in tax title, that's where the access is, and that's the piece we had identified that would be a good reservoir, a future reservoir site. So what, based on what he's showing here, I thought this was beneficial because he's taking advantage of just the 30-acre piece.
Yeah, so
Basically.
we're taking advantage of the piece that's there, that's probably not going to be used for your future water storage area. It also happens to be the area that's got the fewest amount of trees on it, and, you know, it's got the right topography. So likely whatever gets built will look very, very similar to this, but this isn't obviously a final design on that site.
Mr. Chairman, is there an access road right now, and if there isn't, what are the plans for an access road? And
There is no access road to the area he shows displayed. We've had no reason to install that. Just right down here in the upper left corner of the photo is the end of the road that serves, I can't think of the guy's name. Is it EPG Plastics?
Oh, that's me.
I think.
Is it really EPG Plastics? That would be
No,
quite
maybe
coincidental.
just because you're here, I'm saying that. Could be EPV for all I know. And then D&W, the diesel repair guy is there, WD Diesel. If you go past it, Montione owned the building, it's a plastics. In front of his building is a road. And I don't know if it's Hawksley or whose name it has, but it goes all the way, is it Hawksley? And I can't think of the fella's name, but I know he was active in the Tea Party initially. He owns a plant down there too. So that's the access to the town's land. So they'd have to create a further access, but that's his development cost.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all
that
our
was my
cost.
next question.
That's all our costs. And incidentally, on these roads that we create, we call them roads, they're really paths. We put down crushed gravel. They don't actually increase impervious surface or any runoff or anything like that. They're actually designed to just be temporary construction pathways, and then they're only carrying pickup trucks for the guys to go out there for maintenance after that. There's generally, when we build these things, there's about a 3 or 4 month intensive period of construction. And after that, you basically get one visit a month, or one visit a quarter, I'm sorry, once every 3 months. A guy goes out there and just visibly checks all the wires. That's really all we have to do when we're out there. So it's pretty minimal road impact. So yeah, so this would be the facility on which the lease would be based. And then once that thing is built, you would get that lease revenue. You would still get your net meter revenue, but you're also going to get lease revenue. So that goes back to your point of what happens if the sun doesn't shine. This slide 7, we can go through it. Land lease versus net meter credits. The net meter credits are by far the most valuable component of solar to towns. That's why you have so many towns clamoring to get the net meter credits. Like I said, there's a cap, and the savings can be very significant. There are many projects that aren't going to get built that are in the queue right now. I'm pretty good at what I do, but even I've got projects that just don't happen for whatever reason. You go and you find a wire that National Grid says, you know what, that we've already got 3 megawatts of distributed generation on this wire. Sorry, you're gonna have to build a whole nother wire if you want to interconnect. And that whole other wire is gonna go 5 miles, and I just can't make it work. So you don't know any of that stuff until you get in deep into the development process. So it's a risky proposition for us. That's the other reason why we're designing this the way we are. You guys don't know as a town whether or not you can do solar up there. We think we can, but we won't know until 12 months from now. So we're selling you net meter credits, and we're giving you an option because we're pretty confident that we're going to do it. We're also going to give you the net meter credits so you know that you've got this cost savings locked in before we can't lock it in anymore. We put a little chart in here on page 8, and I think this is what Joe wants me to go over in more detail. I mean, this is the actual chart based on the actual costs that are out there, and based on the net meter arrangement that we are proposing to you. And this is really showing you where your total value is on those credits over time, and where the savings is. So even if your energy costs, your electricity portion of your energy bill, were to drop to 1.95 cents, and I don't think that price has been seen on electricity since 1992, but even if it were to drop to 1.95 cents on your electricity component, you still have a transmission and distribution component on your bills that you're going to be paying. And right now, that number is 7.075 cents, I think. So even then, if all of that were to happen, you would still save money on these net meter credits. The other thing that you have is you know what your energy is going to cost you for the next 20 years. Because if natural gas, and in New England, the term we use is gas is on the margin. So that means that natural gas prices drive where your electricity prices are. Right now, natural gas is about $3 a unit, $3 a million BTU unit. In 2008, it was about $14 an MMBTU. So it was, roughly 6 times what it is, or 5 times what it is today. During that time, that's when your total energy costs were 20 cents. When your total electricity bills from National Grid were 20 cents. If that were to ever happen again, it wouldn't matter. That's the benefit of renewable power, is that you have no variable cost component. So therefore, you can fix your prices in the first year, and you know with certainty that A, the project's going to be profitable, and therefore won't shut down, and that B, you know what your energy costs are going to be over 20 years. That's where the benefits are for a situation like this. And this is what this graph is just showing that. The next page, 9, is just detailing sort of where this energy cost will go and what your transmission distribution. There's more detail in here than you guys could ever want to read, but we provided it all for you just to sort of lay it out there and to show you the power savings on the right based on this set of assumptions. Now, I grant you, anybody can make any assumptions on anything and pretty much make numbers come out the way they want to, but this is where your distribution, transmission, and transition costs have been going over time. This is, where electricity is going up only at the cost of inflation. And these are what your savings are going to be based on our output. Now you can see on our energy generation output there, that number keeps declining. I didn't want to put in a flat $4 million kilowatt hours because I know that my system will degrade roughly 1% a year over 20 years. It's going to happen. All of these things are baked in there. And even with those factors calculated in there, you can see that these net meter value to the town will be worth somewhere around $4.5 million over the course of a 20-year life. And then we added in the value of the lease payments should we build a 3.6 megawatt facility on that site. And then your total benefits to the town. The one thing we did not include in there is that 6% of energy cost pilot agreement. That would be an additional increment over this $6.656 million. So the summary of what we put in front of the town was that we would start paying an option payment as soon as we execute documents for the option of the land, which will allow us to go in and start our detailed development. That will be $5,000 a month that you will get up until we either do one of two things. We either start delivering you net meter credits and actually delivering them to you, not just start building our facility, but start delivering them to you. So the first month that you get those on your bill. Or we start paying actual rent per the construction of a facility on your site. The reality is we're going to be delivering you net meter credits far earlier than we would ever start construction. It will take a significant amount of time. But so that $5,000 payment is basically our payment to the town to to start doing the development work. The net meter credits, we went through the economics with you, and we're going to ask the town to sign what's called a net meter purchase agreement. We've shared the agreement with the town council has reviewed it. We've gone back and forth. I have final documents here that we can sign tonight. And then the lease is attached to the option. Its details are already spelled out. Again, that's gone back and forth with town council. We would not execute a lease tonight, but what we have done is we're attaching that to the option agreement so that when and if we are ready to start construction and it's within the 2-year period, we would then present that executed lease to the town. We would start paying our $20,000 a month on our expected output. Now, in this case, it would be based on expected for those first payments. We would have detailed drawings done at that time, so you would be able to see exactly how much capacity we're expecting to put on that site. And we would present that to the town. If we happen to build, 5 panels less or, 7 panels more, that amount would get adjusted depending on what the final installed capacity is. But that lease payment would then only start when we execute that lease and gave it to you. If 2 years go by and nothing happens, Joe gets to build his water tower wherever he wants.
Anywhere on the land. We'll rent it to somebody else.
That's right, exactly. And at the end of 20 years on that lease, the land obviously it's still yours. We return it back to the state that we found it. We pull everything out of there, and we have the bond to do that.
Well, I just want to say that I know that the town manager has put a lot of time and effort into this. This isn't just something that has come before the board without any exploration. I know that the manager has discussed this not only with you and your people, but with our town council. And I have spoken to the manager in regards to what appears to be a finalization of what our attorneys recommend, and I feel comfortable with it, and I don't know what the board members feel at this point, but I do know that it's going to be a positive net savings for the community. And Joe, could you give us what you told me today regarding the final figures once this gets into place as far as net savings per year?
If we buy the 4 million, if we buy the 4 million megawatts, we use, no, it's not.
Kilowatt hours.
Kilowatt hours.
We
Million
use
kilowatt hours.
4.5 million kilowatt hours a year, about 360,000 kilowatt hours a month. That, if we can only get 4 million, we're going to save 200,000 a year. If this kicks in January, that's half of a fiscal year that the town departments would save about $100,000 total. I sent you an exercise we did on the police station alone. The police station would save about $900 a month based on the June electricity usage, and the police station uses about 5% of what the town uses overall. So, multiply that by 20, the inverse of 5%, that's a savings of $18,000 a month. Now, it's proportional based on use. So our schools, which are the biggest users, are going to save the most. They're going to get the most of that savings, but that's where we spend most of our budget money anyway. The town hall budget for electricity is $23,000 a year, I believe. I think that's what I saw in the budget, the last bill we paid. So if we save 40% of that, that's an $8,000 savings just on the town hall. So that's important because we have dwindling resources. The state is not reliable in their share, and it helps us get things done.
Well, and the other factor is that, we've been chosen as an area for this. I mean, there are other communities neighboring us that aren't going to get the benefit that we're going to get. So I think it would be foolhardy if we didn't take advantage of this. If it can be a savings to us, savings as far as reducing our budget, I say why not? And the good caveat is that we still own the land.
Yes.
It's our land. It isn't a privately owned piece of land. So there is some control that the town eventually has regarding, the whole project. So I support it, and I'll open it up to members of the board. Mr. Vos?
Sure. Yeah, I too would like to thank Joe and what is your name again?
Robert Babcock.
Mr. Babcock. Obviously there's some work that went into this. This wasn't something that, Joe stumbled across, yesterday afternoon. So I want to thank the town manager for his efforts in this. I think at this day and age, where we are seeing cutbacks from the state and the town is losing revenues hand over fist every year where we're dealing with increased costs and less resources. I think it is a no-brainer. I applaud the town manager again. I mean, these are the type of innovative things that are, we really need to look at, and hopefully we can take some of this savings, Joe, and start looking at our, converting some of our buildings to gas, maybe.
Yeah, I like
What do you think? But no, I too support this. I think this is like absolute no-brainer.
Chairman,
Casey?
just put out to the board, I'd like to take it under advisement. Has anybody read the net meter purchase agreements? Anybody on the board read those?
No,
No.
probably not.
I don't think it'd be prudent for us to agree to authorize those. I mean, I don't want to put this off, we'll maybe take it up at the next meeting, but it would be pretty foolhardy of this board to vote on adoption of agreements that we haven't even read, so I just want to put that on the record, and I wouldn't be voting on this evening. I've heard some good information, and I want to take a look at those agreements. I mean, we've entered into special permits, and it's a different thing altogether, but there was a question about remediation and removal of the panels after the end of the lease. And that was a good question, and we've dealt with that before in our special permits with developers, and you mentioned the bond and the guarantee bond. So we want to make sure that the right amounts are in place, and we should be reviewing these agreements before we sign off. So I would just ask that we hold it for a couple of weeks. The board has an opportunity to review it, and then bring it up at our next meeting.
I've talked with town council about that very issue, because there's a lot to be done.
There's,
The option agreement is very straightforward. That's a 4-page document. I think, do you have copies?
I have copies of everything.
All right,
Yeah.
that's very straightforward. They're gonna pay us $5,000 a month, or the net meter credits. I don't want the board to sign a lease until we know how big this is gonna be and whether it can be done, because I don't want to tie up the land for 20 years. That's why the option is a good thing. The net meter credits they are indeed this is a complex thing. In fact, Ellie Olson called me, the reporter for the Telegram called me earlier, and I said, look, Ellie, I'm still trying to get my head around what this is all about. And I think she understands now it's not just a simple engineering issue. But I have talked to town council from Copeland and Page, Rick Holland, and he's willing to come out here and go through this with us.
I don't know if that's necessary. I just would like a chance to read it, and then if we had questions, I mean, I don't know how the board feels. I just want to read it, and if I had questions, I'd ask him. I mean, as you said, Joe, you're an engineer. You're obviously an expert in the field, and this is stuff that I'd like to sit down and digest and have a good sense of it before we sign off.
Are you comfortable on the option agreement?
I'd like to read everything before we agree.
Okay, I can appreciate that, too.
I mean, and not a long delay. I mean, we know, we've read agreements, we understand. I mean, we're pretty good with that stuff, but just read it over, and maybe we have questions, or maybe we have ways to improve it. I mean, that happens.
I think it's a reasonable request, Ms. Casey. However, I don't think it's anything that has to go beyond our next meeting, because
I
it's
agree.
2 weeks.
I agree.
So, within 2 weeks,
Sure.
I think the general consensus is, and correct me if I'm wrong, board members, that we are looking favorably upon this. We just want to make sure that all our i's are dotted and our t's are crossed before we sign on the dotted line.
I mean, it sounds good. I mean, some things sound too good to be true, I mean, all these cost savings and everything. I just want to read the stuff over and go from there.
So we'll put it up for a formal vote 2 weeks from tonight.
Okay, I do appreciate that, members of the board, and I'm just, I'm a little disappointed, not because I don't, accept that you guys want to do this. We had actually, we are geared up for a complete EPC and financial closing tomorrow that was going to be predicated on getting these documents signed tonight. So this is definitely throwing a bit of a monkey wrench into the works, none of which is your problem, of course. But
Just have to postpone, that's all.
yeah, we do.
But you have a positive,
We have a positive feedback, so I'm.
and as I told
yeah.
you, I'm not gonna, it's unfair to these folks that are,
understand.
are hearing it tonight.
Yep, I understand. Okay.
You have a favorable agreement
The
amongst
board is gonna
board
do
members at
this,
this
once,
town.
once all
We just want
the
to make
ayes.
sure it's
Yeah.
done right.
Okay, all right. All I was saying was I was trying to figure out if there was something that I could show the investor, but, a vote to favorably consider it after review or something, I don't know. I don't know what Robert's Rules of Order would say, but.
We didn't throw you out anyway.
We didn't,
Yeah,
you didn't throw me
we got
out,
through your
so, okay.
presentation. Well, I mean, Mr. Chairman, if through the chair, if a letter was requested, the chair signed, I mean, I'm not saying how I'm voting right now. I mean,
Right.
it's obviously, there are 4 people here. The other member weighed in. He seemed pretty favorable about it. I can count to 3. Everybody can count to 3. Maybe a letter from the chairman saying that, it's very promising or something like that, if without a vote. I don't think we can take a proxy
Anything that would
vote.
help would be, I appreciate it, thank you.
Yeah,
for-
I mean,
yeah.
we've done that. I know we've done
absolutely
that.
understand the desire to want to read through
Read it,
documents
maybe.
you're being asked to sign. I get it. I mean, that's why we tried to have town council go through all this stuff, and I think he has. I think we have all his comments. I basically accepted all of his comments yesterday.
So basically, what we're telling you, it's subject to us.
Coming back in 2 weeks and doing another vote.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you very much. That's great news. Now I just gotta go dance a little bit. in
What
front of
time is your
the investor.
meeting? I'm through the chair. I don't know
Go ahead.
if you want a letter. Our clerk could probably prepare one in the morning or something.
Yeah, my meeting's at 2, so that's if you could do something like that, would be great.
You have email, I can
Yep,
scan it, email
Absolutely,
it to you.
yep.
We'll get something
All
to
right.
you tomorrow morning.
I do appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you for the idea. I
Sure.
think that'd be very helpful.
Okay,
Thank you.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Will
you.
you leave us the documents
I will
anyway?
leave you everything, yep.
So we can distribute them and the board members can read them.
What I am gonna do is take the check back with me until we
I don't
actually
have a
execute the
check.
document.
You have a check?
I have a check here for 5,000.
Hold on to that.
Hold on to that.
I want
now.
to read that too.
Letter, check. We'll hold it in escrow.
All right. These are, it's 3 copies of all of the documents.
Okay, I can make copies of the copies.
And so the other document that's in there that you'll see in the package, we've got, the net meter purchase agreement, the PPA, is split into 2 pieces. One, because the Southbridge piece will be ready to go much faster than, the next piece, which would be a month or 2 behind it. We wanted to get you guys net meter credits absolutely as soon as possible. This closing that we have is on the Southbridge site, so we want to be able to break ground there as soon as possible, and that's why, timing is driving all of these equipment orders and everything else. So that's why it's split into 2 halves, so you can get these credits as soon as possible, at least the initial, half of it. There's that net meter agreement, there's the other net meter agreement, which is exactly the same, just for the other half of the capacity. There's the lease and the option. The lease is a attachment to the option, it's not to be signed, the option itself is to be signed. And then the other document is an assignment agreement. Washington Gas is a large gas distribution, electric generation utility in the Washington DC area. They are also active in the state of Massachusetts in solar. They are the equity investor in the project. Actually, they're bringing equity and debt, so they're the debt and equity investor in the project. And so it's an assignment agreement where they will then obligate themselves to have to deliver you the net meter credits from the sites that we provide, because they're gonna, give us the money to build the things. So that's why you have those multiple documents there.
Okay.
Okay?
Good.
Hope to see you in 2 weeks. Thank
You
you
know how
very
to
much.
get here.
I do know how to get here. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Manager's report for August 7th. Get my glasses. We have meeting minutes.
You second,
Request the board vote to approve executive session meeting minutes of April 24, 2012. Then Chairman Casey and Selectman Vos were absent. Pleasure of the board?
Entertain a motion.
So moved.
second.
Been moved and seconded.
No, he,
You can't.
Yeah, well, I guess I can't. Was I absent the 24th, though?
that's what I'm told.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You could invoke the rule of necessity, but it's not really needed. John, you can say.
John can
Yeah, I'll
second, that's
second.
right.
Been moved and seconded. No discussion. I'll call for the vote.
Yes.
Abstain.
Abstain.
Yes.
Are those minutes ready to be released? Is that a matter that could be, Madam Clerk?
I'm sorry, I don't have them with me.
Okay. I just want to, I want to make sure we stay up to speed on that. Request the board vote to approve the meeting minutes of May 16, 2012. All were present. Pleasure of the board?
Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion. There being none, call for the vote.
Yes.
Yes.
I'll make it yes. Let the record show. 4 in the affirmative, 1 absent.
We have a resignation. We've received the resignation of Police Officer Paul J. McCarthy from the department effective Saturday, August 18, 2012. Officer McCarthy has accepted a position with the Marlborough Police Department as a lateral transfer. Request the board vote to allow the chairman to sign the transfer paperwork. Pleasure of the board.
Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion. There being none, I'll call for the vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. 4 in the affirmative, 1 absent. Motion carries.
And as a result, due to the shortage of police officers, the chief has requested appointment of 1 or more full-time officers from the roster, which contains the 2 permanent intermittent officers. In order to do that, the board must first send a Form 13 civil service requisition to HRD. That's if we don't have enough people agree to take the position, and for the reemployment list. Then the board can begin the process for appointment. Pleasure of board to allow the chairman to sign Form 13 if it's necessary.
Entertain a motion.
So moved.
We have a
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? There being none, I'll call for the vote.
Yes.
Abstain.
Yes.
Yes, let the record show 3 in the affirmative, 1 abstention, 1 absent.
We have an election worker who's moved. Request the board vote to reappoint Ms. Diane Kaminsky, that's Diane R. Kaminsky, as an election worker in Precinct 2 until August 15th of 2013. Due to Ms. Kaminsky's new address of Old Depot Road, Ms. Kaminsky now lives in Precinct 2. Pleasure of the board.
Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion? There being none, I'll call for the vote.
Yes.
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 Yes, let the record show 4 in the affirmative, 1 absent.
I mentioned in an email earlier that the hurricane season is upon us, and request the board vote to allow the town manager to sign the Massachusetts Emergency Management Opt-in form, which allows the town of Oxford to participate in Public Works municipal aid, municipal mutual aid, which is for governmental units to request and to receive Public Works mutual aid. The state enacted the law in 2010. It provides a framework for cities and towns to negotiate the sending and receiving of equipment and/or manpower to other participating cities and towns in times of need, non-emergency and emergency situations. Pleasure of the board to allow the manager to sign the opt-in form and forward it to the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency.
Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second for discussion.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion? Mr. Vos?
Yeah, Joe, on this, how does this work exactly? How do we, say Dudley needs this, and we gotta go out to Dudley and help him cut some trees down,
Right.
or clear the road, or whatnot? How do we send Dudley a bill and
No,
invoice
we
them?
absorb the cost.
We absorb the cost, so,
And when if we need them to help us, they absorb the cost.
oh boy, see, I like the concept, But here in Oxford, we seem to have a much, our services in Oxford, the ones that we do have, the fire, the DPW, are top notch. I know that our fire department is constantly covering other towns. And my fear is that, us running out to these other towns around, I just don't see us having as much need as the towns around us. Is that a concern at all, do you think?
Well, I'm looking at the list of towns that have opted in as of August 17th of last year. And the immediately abutting towns that have are Auburn, Charlton, Leicester, Sutton, I don't see, Webster's not on here. I don't see Douglas. I know we do make ALS calls to transport for Douglas, the town of Douglas, from time to time.
We do quite a bit
But
for
we
Dudley.
do, we have mutual aid for fire. So for example, the Charlton Fire, we had a tanker there at the site recently. When we had the fire, the apartment building across from the Baptist church, we had backup, we had mutual aid that stayed in our fire stations, which were vacant. So if we needed help, they would be there. And that works very well. And it tends to be a net zero in the cost because they help each other. Yeah.
I'm just a little skeptical. I see the equipment that we have in town and the manpower we have, and, they do an excellent job down there. And I see other towns who aren't staffed quite as well as we are, and I'm just wondering, I never want to stop from helping another town. Someone in need, we want to be there, but if we can opt out of this at any time, can we not?
And it's not an obligation. It allows us to do it.
Okay.
It allows us, when the tornado hit in Brimfield and neighboring towns, some of our DPW people wanted to go. And in fact, they wanted to go on their own dime, but we take the chipper or the chainsaw, and we couldn't. We couldn't legally do it, all right? But, and then there'll be situations when we had the ice storm, we could have used some help. We didn't get any, and the center of town was in great shape. Sutton was in great shape. It was up north that got hit bad.
The thing is, you never know when you're gonna need the mutual aid, that's the thing. You don't know how severe it will be when we do need it, so.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, when we have fires now in other communities, we respond. We send emergency personnel, emergency vehicles.
Correct.
We've done that for decades.
Right.
Plus. So, yeah, I actually read through this whole agreement. And I'm not so sure that the town should opt in. From a resources point, yes, that was a good point. But we've helped other towns before this act. It just came about in 2010. We've helped other communities. And there are provisions in this agreement which are set forth, some of which are set forth in the cover letter that's dated August 17, 2011 from MEMA and Mary Elizabeth Heffernan, the Secretary of Public Safety. But basically, it creates what I would call an accountability nightmare on some levels, whereby it allows municipal officials to share public resources, okay, in support of everyday non-emergency operations. That's a Public Works Municipal Mutual Aid Law, so it's non-emergency, okay? In support of everyday non-emergency operations, participants in the Public Works Mutual Aid Law may be able to realize efficiencies and savings by sharing public works resources across municipal boundaries. That sounds really good on paper, but when you talk about our personnel and our resources, who makes the decision whether we're gonna send people into another town and spend our money that we're gonna be on the hook for? And oh, by the way, and all the equipment that goes into the other town, we're required to insure. And oh, by the way, we have to indemnify and defend if we have people coming into our community or people going out, and hold harmless other communities who, let's say Auburn's coming in and responding to an emergency. and they have a hot shot driving like a maniac, and he's driving negligently, and he kills somebody. We've got to indemnify and insure that community against any claims resulting from the actions and activities of their personnel. So, I mean, there's a lot more that goes into this than just there's a hurricane, let's send help. Of course we want to do that. I mean, there's no question that we want to help brother and sister communities. But it does create an accountability nightmare for our personnel. We lose control of our personnel. It also establishes an advisory, here we go, a new good state agency, right? An advisory committee that will put together forms and help communities with jurisdiction issues. In addition, it says here that when a community opting into either of these agreements does not require a jurisdiction to provide mutual aid if doing so is not reasonable and practicable. Now, you know that those are defined in some statute. What does reasonable and what does practical mean? I'm sure there's an economic definition. There's probably a public safety definition. What do those words mean? I don't know, sitting here. So you could be in a situation where you have to respond if it's reasonable and practicable. And who decides that? The advisory committee? Not the town of Oxford. I just think we should take a look at this. I mean,
Okay, that's fine.
again, I mean, this was just created in 2010. What have we been doing for 100-plus years? Well, we've got a 300th anniversary coming up. What have we been doing for 300 years, helping out other towns? I just think we should take a real sober look at this and see what the ramifications are for the town, Joe. Maybe we do want to ask town council, what's the potential liability here? Because there are some pretty blanket clauses in here with respect to indemnification, holding harmless, insurance responsibilities that would fall on this town, and we would lose control over some of that stuff under this agreement.
If I may.
Go ahead.
The act is over a year old, so we'll take it, I'll ask you to then take it under consideration. I'll see if any of these forms have been developed, because there are a number of towns that have opted in, and what it all means. It's a good point. But
Maybe
right
we should
now,
check with
it's-
some other communities who have opted in and get some experience from, get some
I see
insight.
Auburn and Charlton, I'll check with them.
I just
Lester.
I have something to add to that too, Joe. We've had mutual aid here as long as I can remember, and it's always worked. There's been a mutually accepted agreement amongst our contiguous communities, and it's worked very, very well. And I would hate to see that disappear. This appears to be duplication of effort. I mean, this is something we've been doing anyway, and we have the control and the final say as to whether or not we want to participate. What we're seeing here in this legislation is kind of tying our hands. Why would we want to tie our hands when we're already doing something that they're asking us to do and give us more restrictions for? It just doesn't make sense.
And I accept what you're saying and agree with you, but it's limited right now to fire and emergency. I think police as well. DPW cannot do that. So the component that Sean and I are asking, Sean Dival, the DPW director, are asking for is the component that has to do strictly with DPW. We already have a system that works. You're
Yes.
right, for fire and emergency services, and police services as well.
So this is
So I'll
just
get-
for DPW?
Exactly, that's all I'm asking for. Just on DPW. I don't want to tie at the hands of the fire chief and the police chief.
Good.
But right now, we don't have the authority to help a neighboring town on any project with DPW people. But I will get more information, and
Thank you.
because it's not something we have to decide tonight,
Thank you.
all right?
Thank you.
Thank you all. Good discussion. That's not. Public work. All right, outdoor business permit request. Request the board vote to allow the police department to conduct an outdoor flea market on Saturday, September 15th. The rain date is Saturday, September 22nd, from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. on the grassy land adjacent to the police station at 503 Main Street. That's the grassy part between the middle school parking lot and the police station. This is a fundraiser for the police donation account for community programs. Pleasure of the board?
And a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion? There being none, Yes.
It behooves me to see them having everything on the grass plots. We pay somebody to take care of our property, keep the lawns nice, and then they damage it in no time. Can't they use the parking place at the school, like other groups do, instead of going on the grass? Is it safer walking on the hard pavement than walking on the grass? If it's damp at 8 o'clock in the morning and somebody falls, we got a lawsuit against us.
Well, that's not our jurisdiction. I mean, they would have to get permission from the school department to use that.
Even the police station has a parking area, don't they? No.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, do.
We'll bring that up to them. That's a good point.
I just
Thank
hate
you.
to see when I go to a town meeting and you see people parking on the grass.
We will bring that up, but I want to take a vote on allowing it. The logistics can be taken care of at a later time. And your point is well taken. The manager will look into that. I will call for the vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Abstain?
Yes. And I also would like to add to that motion that the fee be waived.
So moved, so added. Yes.
Second.
Okay.
Yes.
Abstain.
Yes. Let the record show 3 in the affirmative, 1 abstention, 1 absent.
Thank you. Oh, the bandstand's 25th anniversary is coming up. The concert schedule for 2012 is they're presenting free concerts for the 25th consecutive year. To help celebrate this great achievement, there will be a Children's Day. I'm sorry, I have to put my glasses on. There will be a Children's Day held on Saturday, August 11th, that's this Saturday, from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m., featuring games, performers, music, and so on. Also on Saturday, August 11th, from 6:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m., Teen Night will be held at the bandstand. There will be 3 great bands. They are Scan the Sky, Locria, no offense to whoever that is, and What Makes a Hero. All are welcome to attend the festivities. Please bring a blanket or lawn chair for seating. Food will be sold. To round out the concert series for the month of August, there will be Relative Sound on Sunday, August 12th at 4:30 p.m. On Sunday, August 19th, music has yet to be announced, but we'll get to that. And on Sunday, August 26th, the In-Laws will perform at 4:30 p.m. In conjunction with the bandstand's 25th anniversary, the board would like to proclaim August 12th, 2012 as Oxford Bandstand Day in Oxford. A proclamation is in the to-be-signed folder. Thank you. Audio Journal. Attentive listeners will have noticed that there is a sound in the background on Channel 12 now, while the message board is scrolling. I had to adjust the volume a little bit to get it loud enough. It's a voiceover service provided by Audio Journal Incorporated, who, according to their website, are a nonprofit radio, cable, and online broadcast service that seeks to inform and empower people who are blind, visually impaired, or otherwise unable to read print materials. Former fire engineer Michael Plant, who is a reader for Audio Journal, recently contacted us about having a feed connected, and the town's technology wizard, Mr. Justin Ledoux, had it up and running in 2 days. Reminder, state primaries coming up. Just a reminder, the state primary will be held on Thursday, September 6th, 2012, from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. The last day and hour to register new voters or change party enrollment is Friday, August 17th, between the hours of 9 a.m. and 8 p.m. One may also register to vote, change their name, change their voting address, or change party enrollment at the office of the town clerk during the regular business hours, that's 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., Monday through Friday, or by sending a mail-in registration form to the office of the town clerk, 325 Main Street, Oxford, Massachusetts, 01540, postmarked by the deadline of August 17th, 2012. Town Clerk Lori Kelly was in earlier this evening and asked that I also mention that there will be a special election for the Bay Path project on August 4th. That will be a 7 through 8 p.m. We'll have more October 4th. August 4th is since gone. October 4th, more details will follow. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Selectmen's request?
Thank you, Chairman Sad. About a month, 2 months ago, you had requested that at the Cumberland gas station in the southern part of town that we put nice crosswalk lines in, and they did that. It looks very nice. But the problem is people are still parking there. They park, it's very difficult to get in and out of those gas bays. There's been instances where they've got a delivery, and if you're stuck there and somebody parks, you can't get out. I've been keeping a notice, just driving by so many times, and it happens quite frequently. Just within the past 2 days, I've seen 4 vehicles. So I didn't know if I could request that we raise the area, put in a berm, and put an actual sidewalk in that area, so that would prevent cars from parking there.
They park on the sidewalk?
Well, they park on the lines that designate
so
the
that's where the
sidewalk,
okay.
right. And it makes it very difficult. Like I said, that's a tough facility to get in and out.
That's the
begin
one
with.
with the Jersey barriers at the backyard, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
right. But this is in the front, and they park there regularly, people,
Okay.
and so if we could, and that's all I have.
Thank you.
Mr. Vos?
I'll be brief. In speaking about the mutual aid program that the state is proposing, it kind of reminded me of something. The past couple of years, during these large storms, we've had a lot of power outages, and some folks in town were without power for, weeks. And it made me think about where do the people in town go, Joe, if they have an elderly person who doesn't have power, no air conditioning. They have, do we have a shelter set up in town? I know there's been some shelters set up in the past in other communities, but I guess A, where do we have them in town? What do we have? And B, if they are in other towns, do we have transportation set up to bring these folks out there? I know we can't be all things to everybody, but I know that in the last couple of summers we've really had some folks who were without power for quite a long period of time, and it was very uncomfortable for them.
During the last event, we did have a few, I'm going to say 1 or 2 families that needed shelter. We have the schools set up as shelters, emergency shelters. In fact, we've been doing some training. We have a meeting at the EOC, Emergency Operations Center, which is the police station, coming up to go over that with MEMA. But we've been very proactive in this regard. One of the things I found distressing is that we need an emergency generator. The Housing Authority needs an emergency generator down off the housing off Cypress Street. Orchard Hill has a water supply, although it's the public water supply, because they are up on a hill, they have a booster pump. That facility lost power during the last event, and which was incredibly scary because we had uninhabitable apartments without flushing water, and so we took a very proactive stance and brought in an emergency generator so that facility could run, got them back up and running. And they did reimburse us for it, because they know they should have had a generator. But we are on top of those things, and we've been fortunate thus far. I'm not aware of a regional facility. If there is something like a fire, the Red Cross will come in and help folks get relocated to temporary shelter, but we've been rather fortunate thus
I
far.
think there was one set up in Sturbridge, but maybe if there's be a way we can get this information out to the public.
We will do that.
You know, maybe get on a scroll, maybe put something in the senior center's monthly mailer, you know, just let people know if you're without power for, you know, just give people a heads up. I appreciate that. And one other item, we're gonna have the Oxford 300th, the Third Centennial Committee is gonna be having their third annual and final golf tournament this year. It's gonna be on September 8th. It's a Saturday. We've had great weather the past 2 years, so our fingers are crossed. So if anyone at home wants to get in this golf tournament, this is going to be our last one. Like I said, it's been a great time in the previous years, and all are welcome. That's all.
What date?
That'd be September 8th. It's a Saturday this year. It's been on Sunday the previous 2 years, but we've gotten the tournament big enough where we can utilize the Saturday position now.
Great.
And that's all I got. Thank you.
I just have one item, Mr. Chairman. I just want to give a shout out to the Oxford Little League Juniors. They had a great run this year, as we all know. They finished #1 in the state. They were Massachusetts state champions, and they went down to New Jersey, and they won their first game, a great game against Rhode Island. And things look good, but unfortunately, they lost a tough one to New York last night, and they lost again today to Pennsylvania. So they have been eliminated from the tournament. They're making their way back up here. But I wanted to say congratulations to that team, to all those young men and their families. What a great run. How proud we are of you. And I want to just give a shout out to the staff, course manager Paul Fitzpatrick, Tim St. Germain, and my favorite coach, Burke Desatel. Those three guys really put in the time all summer, I can tell you. I haven't seen them all summer. And they really dedicated themselves to that team. So when they come back, they should all be very, very proud. Hold your heads up high. We certainly are very proud of them.
Very good.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that it?
Yes.
I just have one item. It has been brought to my attention that there may be some legislation in the works regarding doing away with local housing authorities. I haven't really gotten anything specific on it, but I think it's worth looking into. If that's the case, I just want to go on record as being totally opposed to it. I've talked to some of the elderly who are concerned about that fact, that we lose local control. Each community that has a housing authority has local people who are elected and one appointed state appointee who sits on that board. And the community becomes a part of that group because you have local representation. And if that local representation is taken away and taken over by the state, I think it's a shame. And people don't want that. They want to have the local control. Now, I don't know what the status of the legislation is, but I understand that there is legislation pending. Joe, could you contact the Housing Authority, the Director of the Housing Authority, and find out what the status of that is? And it may warrant, once we get the dope on it, maybe we can send a letter to our local representatives and senator asking them to not support that type of takeover by the state. Yes.
It's my understanding, Mr. Chairman, that it has already occurred, and it was through an administrative fiat where an administrative or bureaucracy basically stepped in, did a study, and that has already occurred. And I think that there is an advisory council committee that's been put together, and this has trickled down from the feds. And we know because of the housing scandal in Chelsea, but I think it's already happened, and it wasn't anything that our legislature voted on. It was through, like I said, unelected administrative fiat. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what I read, and if that's
Maybe.
the status,
Like
but,
I say, I don't know the status, and that's why I'm.
but maybe I mean, your point's well taken.
Let's find out where it stands, and if there is something that can be done, let's do it. If not, well, at least people will know that we certainly don't support it. I know I don't. Would you look
That's
into
it.
that?
I will, absolutely.
That's all I have. Yes.
Apologize for taking up more of your time. I've just come back to sort of appeal to you to reconsider. I left here and called the investor, and the closing, barring anything changing here, for tomorrow has been canceled, which will likely fatally affect the project. I understand this board's concern, I understand your desires and everything. At this point, I've got nothing to lose except for to ask you to come and make a vote to see if we can sign those documents. We can amend those documents, and I am 100% certain that if you guys review these, talk to your counsel, you will not find any problems in the documents. So certain that I will agree to any amendments that you choose to ask for afterwards if you were to vote and sign on them tonight. The project is, the Southbridge project that was going to satisfy your net meter credits will likely face at least a 2012 death if we can't get something done tonight. So I just leave that for you. I know you've all guys have already spoken. I know what your views are. I know what I'm asking, but that's why I'm asking.
Ms. Casey, since you were the one that brought this up?
I'm not going, I mean, are you authorized to accept any amendments with respect to this agreement? I mean, what's your authorization to say that you would accept any amendments?
I control this company, I control this project, so yes, I can sign any amendments. I can execute these agreements and I can sign any amendments.
Well, this is, Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, I mean, poor planning on other people's parts should not create an emergency on this board's, and I've got a fiduciary duty to read any agreement I put my signature on to the people of this town, so I'm not going to reconsider. I don't know what the board wants to do.
Any other comments?
I'm in no hurry to sign it either.
There again, I think we should take a look at it.
It's the responsible thing. We understand you asking, but I told you this. Okay?
I mean, you know where we stand. I mean, you have a sense of where we stand, barring anything.
Yeah, I understand.
I think the board has spoken.
Okay.
And if you still want that letter, we'll be more than happy to. It appears as though you won't need it.
I may not need it. Yeah. Anyway, Joe, I'll let you know tomorrow if
All right.
anything changes.
Let me know.
Thank you very much.
Any other business to come before the board?
We're all set.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Call for the vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. We are adjourned.
Yeah, 26 strong now?
Yeah, right.
Didn't work.
I told you.
Yeah, right.
Good try.
I feel like I'm the
To look after me. We shall be very glad to see you at the ceremony. Till Monday then, 12 o'clock at St. Philip's Church. It's a good thing you brought that bureau downstairs, Media. It'll be handier to carry across to the Ring of Bells on Monday.